Welcome back to the Legal Vixen Podcast. I'm trial attorney Karren Kenney from Kenney Legal Defense, and today we're going to have a special guest, a retired federal and state court clerk, Lisa Bredahl. Nice. I'm so glad you could join us. I know the Zoom, it would have been better in person, but you're over on the East Coast, aren't you?
I am. After I retired, I moved east.
Are you enjoying that?
I love it. It's crazy weather, but it's not the same forecast every single day.
Oh, that's true. You do have crazy storms, though, in the summer, don't you?
We have. This summer's been the craziest so far.
Yeah, really bad. If you could tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about your background.
Okay, when I went to school, I studied political science. I was going to go to law school. I went to Europe and came back, and then I started to work in Superior Court. And after working Superior Court, I decided, no, I do not want to go to law school. Like, this is crazy. So I spent 10 and a half years at Santa Monica Superior Court. And then my son was turning kindergarten age, so I wanted to find a good school district, so I decided to move to Orange County. And I worked for two law offices, and one of them ended up being across the street from the federal building, the federal courthouse. I'm like, oh, that would be a good place to work. So it never occurred to me because I'd always worked in state court. So I applied and I started working in Santa Ana Federal Court in August 2001. And
wow, August 2001.
Yeah,
that was right before 9/11, wasn't it?
It was not right before 9/11. My first jury trial, which was to be 6 weeks long, intense case. Witness was in witness protection. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really, and the defendant threatened the U.S. attorney's wife. It was very complicated. And yeah, so the September 11th, I get to the courthouse really early because it's my first jury trial. I hadn't done jury selection in federal court before, so I get there, and when I left home, the first plane had hit, and I was like, oh, that's a bad mistake. Someone is in big trouble. I got to work. All of a sudden, we have TVs in the education room. Somebody screams, "Come here!" And then we saw the second plane hit, and all of a sudden, the alarms go off in the courthouse. And we get an announcement, they're shutting the courthouse. Nobody's allowed in.
Oh.
And it's like...
So they do an alarm?
They can. Yeah, they also have a intercom system. So they just get on the intercom and say, the courthouse is shut down, the courthouse is shut down. You can leave, but you cannot get back in. So I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I was inside. Everybody else, my judge... 2 law clerks, secretary, all the attorneys, all the jurors, nobody had gotten into the courthouse. And so the jurors could have, but they immediately evacuated anybody. And so the judge calls, and the cell phones weren't common then. So calls on the and he's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm like, I hope someone tells me because I have no idea what's happening. Like, I'm here. I don't even know how to pick a jury, much less what this is. And immediately people are saying that, okay, it's going to be East Coast, West Coast thing. They're going to hit the West Coast next. So there's a lot of panic going on. The marshals are out. The court security officers are out. And so he says, we're going to tell everybody to come back Thursday because I am sure we're going to be shut tomorrow. Okay. So I go out to the security officers. I'm like, well, if you can tell people, tell everybody come back Thursday. And so my law clerks are calling, and they were U.S. attorneys knew how to get hold of me. All the attorneys knew, so they all called, and I'm just like, come back Thursday, 9 o'clock. Hopefully, keep in touch, and we'll figure it out. And I was
Yeah.
to have 75 jurors on 9/11. So on September 13th, we were open again. So we just went right back into trial because we had these 75 people on hold. And 74 of the people showed up. And a lot of people
Wow.
didn't want to be in that building because there's a big gold U.S. seal on the tallest building in Santa Ana. But they felt it was
Yeah, it's like,
their obligation because what else are you going to do? At least you could stand up for your country by going to jury duty. So we picked a jury and on we went. So that was
wasn't that during the time that the airspace was still down? Remember they grounded
they
everything?
grounded everything. Oh yeah, but they're jury. Everybody's local, and
Yeah.
the I don't think the witnesses were. I don't think the. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the witness and witness protection was not. But by the time they called her, things had, because it was a long trial. It was over 6 weeks. So by the time they just called her towards the end, yeah. So that was how I started in federal court.
That's stressful. What judge were you working for
I was
then?
Judge Gary Taylor. So
Okay.
he was my first judge. One that I'm lucky. All my judges were great. He was really special. I'm in touch with them, all of them, all the time, still to this day. So I was very lucky, and he was just that very calm, the nicest man you could ever meet, like ever. I used to think
How
at
many years did you Yeah, how
5.
many years did you work for?
I worked with
Okay.
him for 5. When I first got there, he was so nice. My first instinct was, I know he's going to be like bipolar, and this is his nice side. And then one day he's just going to start yelling at me because I'm like, nobody is this nice. The man is
Oh.
really that nice. So that was,
And when did he get off the bench and what year was
I
that?
want
It
to
would have been
say
like 2006.
2016. Yeah,
Hmm.
2006, I want to say. Yeah. Right about,
Oh
it was
wow.
right about exactly 5 years. I think a little short of 5 years.
Did he retire? He
He
just
did
chose.
retire. He retired, and like a lot of them do, he went to be a mediator. Um,
A neutral. I think they call it a neutral now.
uh, the hip lingo for whatever
I
they
guess.
are.
I know. I just learned that when I had another retired judge on, Judge Goethals. He's from state court, and then the appellate courts of California. So yeah, I was like, I'd never heard a neutral. I'd never heard that before. I'm just old school. It's like mediator, arbitrator.
A lot of judges
Just-
go do that. A lot of my state court judges go do that. Went and did that.
yeah.
It's very different in state court. You change judges all the time. It's not a thing. Like in federal court, you would never, ever do that unless, say, your judge is retiring and then you need a new home. But other than that, oh no, unless they want to get rid of you, you would never ever leave it. Nor would I have wanted to. But that's beside the point.
Yeah. So after Judge Taylor decided to move on to greener pastures and do neutral work, who did you work for?
I had almost a year in between where I did a 9-month trial with Judge Carter. There were 2 of us because it was so long and so many attorneys. Then
Oh, was that the gang one where you guys would be there till like 12 midnight?
Aryan Brotherhood. Let's be clear. The
Yes.
attorneys were there
There.
until 12 minutes.
Sorry.
Oh no, the Christy and I walked out. 6 was usually the latest we'd stay. We're like, bye. We're not staying. We can't do that.
I heard stories, but that's insane to
It,
be
it,
as an attorney in court that late.
everything about that trial was insane. The the thing I always remember is that one day, so it's the Aryan Brotherhood, it's the multi-defendant courtroom. So they're changed to their seats. Each of them has 2 attorneys because it's death penalty. And I had 26 marshals assigned to me. So they worked on shifts of 13. So there would be 13 in the courtroom at all times because there's 4
Wow.
defendants and they're death penalty eligible. And all of a sudden, all the lights go out and the generator does not kick in. It is pitch black. Well, that had happened to me in state court. I'm like, oh no, I was already at the side door. Like I was, I was like, I am not staying in here. And all of a sudden you hear Judge Carter say, nobody moves right now. Nobody moves. And so then all of a sudden the generator kicks in. I mean, it seemed like an eternity. I'm sure it was, a minute at most. And then so what happens is when you have that many marshals, some are armed and some are not armed. So the armed marshals are around the perimeter of the courtroom, and the not armed marshals are surrounding the box where the defendants are sitting. And of course, going through all our minds is this is a break, right? Someone's coming in and they are going to break these guys out. And so when the lights go on, the 4 defendants just started laughing because they saw where everybody was. It was like a practical alert. Everybody's like, oh my God. And they just started laughing. It was actually pretty funny because after all that tension, of course, once they started laughing, everybody else started laughing. Not so much marshals, but
I never heard that story. I've heard stories from that trial, but I never heard that one.
Yeah.
I would have thought the same thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're the whole trial, all you're hearing about is how they're so coordinated. They have all these people on the outside. They have, they sell drugs on the outside. So your first instinct is to think that. And of course, that's the marshal's job. So, of course, that's the first thing they thought. And they're all set up so they know what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to go. So.
That's insane. I can't remember because I did the Mexican Mafia trial with Craig Wilkie in Judge Selna's court. Were you in there or was it his other clerk?
Carla before me.
It was Carla. That's right.
I heard, because we're next door, I heard every story every day, whether I wanted to or not.
It was because they had witness protection in the courtroom there was, I think, 4 snitches that I think they had some level of what they call WITSEC or their witness protection. And when one of those guys would be on the stand, it was just like, what's going on? There were
also move them. So they would come and they would only they'd only be at a certain spot they would use my courtroom if I wasn't in session just to sit there with the witness. And then they would move the witness. So the witness never, like a normal witness would wait somewhere. They moved them all over the courthouse, so there was never any way to know where that witness was. And then you have to call the marshals and say, okay, we're ready, and then they will bring the witness from wherever they were. They used, empty chambers, they used courtrooms.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
A judge goes back and he's like, what are you doing in here?
I said empty. So
empty.
Empty, not real chambers.
Oh, I could just imagine. That's insane. But going back to when you started working for Judge Guilford, right. So you went from Judge Taylor to Judge Guilford.
Right.
Was there? I'm assuming you already knew Judge Guilford before you.
No, Judge Taylor introduced me to Judge Guilford, and when. My first thought, everyone's like, oh, you love Andy, he's the greatest. And everybody told me that. And when I first met him and his secretary, who came with him from the law firm, I said, look, you can interview people. Don't feel obligated to take me as your clerk judge. And he's like, it was good enough for Gary, it's good enough for me. And, but my first thought, and I've told him this a million times, because it makes my first thought is, oh, he'd never been a judge before. Most come from state court. He was from a law office. So I have a judge who's never been a judge. I have a secretary who's never been a secretary in federal court. One of the law clerks is his last trial's co-counsel's kid. I'm like, I'm doomed. Like, what is going to happen here? What am I going to do? But they were so, when we started, Judge Guilford just said, we're doing it exactly the way Judge Taylor did it. And then I'll tweak it as we go. So it works better for me. But you just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to have to explain to me what you're doing, but you just keep doing it your way. So from the get-go, I had to just explain procedure. Like, obviously the secretary knew how to file a document, but that's not her job anymore, right? And hers was more tied to him. And she did a lot for the chambers. But
I didn't know they could bring their, staff from whatever firm they come from. And what does that look like? What did she do?
They could for a clerk, for a CRD, but the person would have to interview through the clerk's office. For it's called a judicial assistant. At one point it was a secretary. That most don't have anymore. They choose 3 law clerks, but that you can bring from the outside. That's not a problem at all. And she was the biggest gift. We never had 3 law clerks. You could never do without Pam, ever, because she was so good. Oh, wow. She kept his calendar, and that's a complicated matter right there. And she did anything like CRDs have to order jurors lunches. So I would go to the jurors or get the orders, but she would call it in and she would tally. She would do all these things that a lot of them wouldn't do, because they would say, no, that's your job. But we were never like that. Everything was everybody's job, and anybody could, there'd be a given day. If Pam was out, I'd hand it to law clerks. Here you go. Call this restaurant. Tell them what the order is. Tell them what time. And they were all. It's. I think because we had to rely on each other so much, or they had to rely on me so much to start, that we just all became. In all my chambers, you're all families. I talked to all of my law clerks. So 11 and a half years. That's a lot of law clerks. That's probably close to 30 law clerks. But
that's a lot.
Even when I sent an email to all my Judge Guilford's law clerks, and I'm like, okay, guys, help. What do you remember? What was the best story you had from when you were there? And then I just kept getting email after email. Like, oh, I remember this. I remember that. Because, it's a really, for people who don't know, that's a very prestigious job for someone straight out of law school, almost always, to go to work for a federal judge. And he had a great, Judge Guilford had a great sense of who to choose to be the law clerks. They always seemed to fit in. First, sometimes I'd be like, oh, what did he do this? But it always ended up great. It really did.
Oh, that's funny. What does the law clerks do? Do they do all the research?
They do all the research. They draft orders for the judge. And generally, Judge Guilford and Judge Taylor, all 3 of my judges did the same way. They would draft it. If before they just didn't know which direction to go, they would discuss it with the judge, sit down and discuss it. And then when they would sit there, when they were new, and they would go, I just don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. It could be granted. It could be. I said, look, we don't have time for I don't know. Pick a side and defend it. And then if you're wrong, the judge will tell you, yeah, no. But if you can't get out of him which way to go, because at that point, excuse me, he hasn't read the papers, right? So he reads them later. The law clerks are the ones reading them a week or two before.
So the law clerk gets the motions, does all the research, comes up with like a tentative, and then I'm assuming at that point they give it to the judge, who obviously looks at all of it and decides what they edit it.
They edit it if they think it's right, or they usually call the law clerk and say, okay, this I like, no, get rid of that, do this. And so they go back and forth until they come up with a tentative. And then, the tentatives are, all 3 of my judges posted the tentatives, so one did it the morning of, but the other 2 posted it whenever it was ready that week. And
Oh, that's good.
yeah, it's because so sometimes you have multiple days. And then I think a big misconception by attorneys is that judges never change their tentatives, and that's not true in my experience. Maybe some don't. I mean, some change it more than others, but they were all open to changing it. And they may not change the ultimate decision, but they may change parts of it. And sometimes they'll flat out reverse themselves. So the argument is very important. If they don't, if they just tell you we're taking it off calendar, we granted it, there's no question in their mind. If they give you a hearing and you can argue, you can change that tentative. So be ready to go. Be prepared with your best arguments. Don't waste your time on minutia, which
Yeah.
a lot of people tend to do. And you got to make it concise because there's just not a lot of time to hear all the motions.
There's a judge that I currently am dealing with that takes things off calendar because he just decides, oh, I've heard enough on your papers. And you're like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
But I want to come there and argue.
But I want to. Oh, they all do, but some more than others. Some take the vast majority off, and others, all of the judges I work for love their favorite part of the job is that back and forth. It's very, the legal mind. And Judge Guilford, actually, attorneys, you could see them start to panic because he would be asking them this questions like, but what about this? But what about that? So they think they're losing when in actuality they were winning because he's asking them the hard questions because he's going to rule for them in his mind. It's just tentative.
So as the CRD, courtroom deputy,
yep.
How much influence does a CRD have in like day-to-day operations of the courtroom?
That's the thing about federal court. It's a very judge specific. So some you have, my judges were all Taylor and, like I said, Taylor and Guilford use the same system. So Judge Selna had been on the bench a long time. So he had his own system, which was just different, which was fine. I mean, he's a brilliant man and a wonderful person. But I mean, I basically controlled when the trials were, when the motions were, that's the key to being a clerk is, like, I know what's going to come. Like Judge Guilford asked me, which one of these cases is going to trial? Well, I would know. I wouldn't know for sure, but I would get in touch with, say, the U.S. attorney. I'm like, what are the chances of this game going to trial? And they're like, no. We're working on a plea, or yeah, I think it will. And so you just have to play those odds. And, obviously we had days when there's multiple trials on. But I personally, for the most part, had a lot of control over the day-to-day. Every attorney knows, like the court clerks, no judge very few, I should say, never say never. Very few judges want to deal with, I need 30 days more to file a motion to dismiss. Well, no judge wants to spend their time reading that. I want a pro hoc vice. Well, no judge wants to, half of them don't even know what you need to have a pro hoc vice, where we check and make sure they have local counsel, they paid the fees, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the mundane stuff is handled by the courtroom clerks because it's not worth the time for the law clerks or the judge to do. They need to focus on, tough legal issues. Does the judge generally care if I thought it was a huge motion, I would go in and ask them. I'm like, okay to continue this motion, or and 9 times out of 10, yes, but maybe they've already spent a lot of time on it, or they're like, nope, they continued it too many times. Don't continue it. But you just get a feel. Like most of the time I just did it, but then I would be, this case, maybe not. So this one's a mess, and the judge might not like that, so then you just ask. So most clerks do. Some clerks don't like that. They rather everything goes to chambers and the law clerks, which I think is putting a lot of law clerks, and I prefer to just deal, like Judge Taylor always said. His brother was some kind of proficiency guy, and he said the more people that touch something, the less proficient you are. So if it comes into you and you send it out, there we go. We're saving time. You just had to learn, which is it takes some time, what you should and shouldn't. And every once in a while, one with Judge Taylor, I don't know what I signed, and then I get a letter from I think it was dismissal, because why wouldn't you let a dismissal? But it was some special one of the government agencies, and a letter comes in saying, "Oh, you can't do that." So I freak out. I'm like, "What did I do? I can't do that." It's like the Attorney General is writing me a letter or something.
That's crazy.
I'm like, I don't know what I did, but apparently I shouldn't have. He's like, don't worry about it. He just does something and fixes it, and that was that.
That's so funny. So you spent the first 10 and a half as a state court clerk in state county court, Santa Monica. Then you go into the federal system. That's a huge difference, isn't it?
21 years I was in federal, but when I first got there in federal, I'm like, it was kind of freaking me out, because state court's always a zoo. There's always a million people. People are talking in the courtroom. I did criminal master.
There's no decorum. There's no decorum.
7 district attorneys talking to 7 counsel, and then 1 district attorney's talking to the judge, and we had this crazy slide for files, and they come flying down, and it's just mass chaos, always chaos, and always a million people. And I go to federal court, and it's like eerily quiet in there. And then you can imagine, we had the most beautiful courthouse with the most beautiful courtrooms and big courtrooms and beautiful wood. And my state courthouse was literally falling down. And everybody.
So's the Orange County one, and they still haven't done anything to update it in Orange County. The Orange County's.
When the earthquake hit, the Northridge earthquake hit Santa Monica, all the tiles came out of the ceiling, and asbestos came down. So we were out of our courthouse for 6 months. Because I had a toddler, we had bungalows. So there were 3 bungalows. So they let me stay there because I had childcare issues. I was by myself. But people were at the Pepperdine courthouse, at Pepperdine Law School. They have a mock courtroom.
Nice.
People were downtown. People were anywhere they could find a courtroom. They sent people all over because of the asbestos. And I'm like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was awful. Everything. We had a defendant crawl into the heating vent system, and
what? Wait, when?
When I was there, he escaped. We had more than one.
Wait, was this as a criminal defendant?
Yes, in custody. And somehow he got up into the vents, and then they had to shut down the courthouse. We were shut down all the time for bombs.
That's classic.
And then they finally turned on all the heat to heat him out, and so they finally did get him. He was like, when they arrested him, apparently he was like in his boxers or whatever underwear they give you at jail. And we went into our courtrooms, and the ceiling tiles were off, and he had gone into our courtrooms because most of us would have like candy or food in a drawer. He had found all that. He had eaten people's food, their tiles.
Oh my! How long was he in there?
2 days, over 48 hours.
So I'm so confused how this happens, because usually in criminal cases there's a tank area in the courthouse. Was he in the tank area, and somehow
he was in one of the cells, and somehow he got the ceiling tile off and climbed in there and started getting into the vents. And when they figured it out, of course, we had to evacuate because he could have come down in any courtroom. But
oh my gosh, was he in trial? He was just there for like
he
a
was
hearing.
just there for a hearing. I don't even remember what, because it wasn't my defendant, but it was always something. This is state court is just like that. I had a defendant, a murder suspect, mind you, that pushed his chair back, straight back. My marshal got thrown over. The other one was unlocking the door, and Santa Monica wasn't really secure. So the guy ran by me, right behind me, could have grabbed like my letter opener and stabbed me, held me hostage. Ran by me,
true.
went out to the back hallway, which, so you could, if you got into the back hallway, so he went down the hallway, down the stairs, out the back door, ran down to the Santa Monica Beach, which is a block away, and they caught him. They had to take a squad car onto the sand to catch him. This stuff happened all the time.
Oh my gosh. So like if social media had been around when that was going on, that stuff would have been blowing up, because you don't see stories like that.
It was always like, that's the thing. I don't remember so many because it was always something. And then you go to, I'll never forget, you go to federal court and the defendants walk in, the marshals, they come in with 2 marshals, where in state court I have 1 marshal with 2 or 3 guys. I'm like, this is not good. And the defendants walk in and they're so polite and they sit down, and you never, like, I had more defendants state court cuss out the judge, tell him to F off, everything you've ever heard, screaming at me that I didn't file. It didn't matter. They were screaming. They would act crazy. And I go to federal court, and they're all so well behaved, and they're all just, yes, Your Honor. I'm like, what is happening? I had one young girl, while I was chatting with this young defendant. She was there. I don't know where her attorney was. Maybe, I don't know. And I said, he gave you 1 chance. I said, but he's not going to give you another chance, so don't screw up. And she said, yeah. She goes, I knew it was serious when I came in here and I saw the carpet. So the carpet in Santa Ana it's beautiful carpet. It
is beautiful.
Deep linoleum tiles like state court, and it has the seal of the United States all over it. And she said, when I saw that carpet, I knew I was in big trouble.
That's so funny. I would have never thought that, but that's so true.
Because
the courtrooms are just breathtaking.
They're just, and that's what it's intended. It's intended to be this very serious, majestic place, so that people take that it is serious. And I was very lucky because Judge Taylor helped design that courthouse. The courthouse only opened in 1999. So he actually designed that carpet. He designed the ceilings. He picked out the statues. The other members of the committee were from Los Angeles, and they, quite frankly, didn't care. It wasn't their courthouse. So he got a little. So I know a lot of things about that courthouse, and it was all very deliberate, which I think is, it's beautiful. After being where I was, to go to that, and then everybody's, they do all rise. We didn't do all rise in
I know.
State court.
Well, and in state court, state court, it's so common to chamber with the judge or go up to the judge. And that was because I was a public defender in Orange County for 12 years. And then when I left and got on the panel, the first trial I did to get on the panel was in Judge Guilford's court. I was with Cuauhtemoc, and it was that fraud trial. There was 5 defendants, and our defendant was the only one that was found not guilty. But it was just, that was my first experience doing, a trial, and it just was so different. And you can't just talk to the judge.
Oh no, that was a big trial. When I was in state court, like I said, it was 2001. The DAs and the public defenders would go back into judges' chambers on Fridays and drink whiskey and smoke cigars. I mean, that was just like, that was not
Back in the day.
back in the
Yeah.
day. I mean, I can't even imagine. But state court, federal court's so formal, and everybody's like, "Yes, Your Honor," and pretty much in state court, like, "Hey, Judge." Like, it was just very, like, it was night and day for me. And at first, I was younger, and I was like, "Is this place going to be boring?" Like, I don't know. I liked a lot going on, but I was a mom, my kid was young, and I'm like, yeah, I can. And it's not boring. There's actually way more work in federal court for a clerk than state.
Really?
Way, way, way more. Yeah.
Okay. I did hate, and I know some judges still require it, blue backs on every document, like a motion.
So ridiculous. But Judge Taylor, like, if you didn't, he would not, he's call you, like, you need to send it with the blue back, which is, there was a point to it because those files, right? So we just back them up. You could just pull up the blue backs and it'd be different documents. Whereas if you just had all white paper, you can't find anything.
Yeah,
but
that's
it was,
so true.
I mean, I don't know how people even knew how to do that. It was so crazy to me. But in federal court,
yeah, a lot of judges now don't. Yeah, that's true too.
So now you don't even have to give courtesy copies to a lot of judges, or chambers copies. They hate when we call them courtesy copies because it's not a courtesy, it's required.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I know I've got so much to talk to you about, and I'm on like page 1 of 18. I could do a series out of this. Another one thing I wanted to ask about was more specific, because I love doing jury trials. So I've done over 100 criminal trials. I've done 6 civil trials. Now I'm of counsel with a firm that they use me to do jury trials for them, which I love. My last one was it was in LA Federal Court with Judge Schneider. Mm-hmm. Do you know Judge Schneider? Oh, she's fun.
I've met her. Of course, Judge Guilford knows her. Judge Guilford knows everybody. But really nice, from what I
love her.
Was good about her. Yeah.
Yeah, she was so nice. But like jury selection's different. It seems to go faster in federal court. Like,
there's nothing the same about it. See, the thing about state court is, like, so LA Superior has like 450 court clerks. On a given day, if my judge was on vacation, they could say, "Lisa, you're going to Torrance to cover a criminal courtroom." So I get to Santa Monica. This is back before all that. Get to Santa Monica, and I get in my car and I drive to Torrance. I appear, and they're like, "Okay, here's the courtroom." Someone would take you to the courtroom, and you can go in, and everybody does everything exactly the same way. So you don't have any problems. Every judge does it the same way. Every judge finishes at 4:30 because they don't want to pay everybody overtime. Every judge, there's nothing. See, they just don't pay us overtime in federal court. So, but every federal judge does things completely different. It's their own kingdom, and that's why each of them has that web page that says, "These are." We call them local rules, because we have local rules, but these are the judge's specific rules. And that makes it, nobody does anything the same. Nobody. Like, for me to go into another courtroom, I have to have the clerk. I mean, a lot of times I'm like, "Hey, can you cover my courtroom for the," of course, and then you have to ask, okay, the simplest question, how do you open court? Do you do the whole rigmarole? Like, all rise and face the flag and all that. And so you have to, the simplest things. Do you do all rise? Do you do, Judge Guilford for a period of time did remain seated and come to order? You don't even know how to open court because they're all so different. So that's why it's difficult. It's very difficult for attorneys in federal court. It is. It's a whole different ballgame for that.
Yeah, it's funny because when I think I must have done... There was a period of time I was doing a bunch of trials in federal court, and they were all with Judge Selna. I don't know why, but there was like 3 in a row with Judge Selna. They were cases I think I inherited from Mr. Harley,
I remember.
I forget what year that was, but yeah. So they were all with Judge Selna. So after being in there so long, going back to state court, I was like, oh wait, I don't have to stand.
Right.
And then you have to keep, if you can't touch the podium in federal court, you're going to get in trouble.
Oh,
well, state court, you're all over the place.
Yeah, you could walk over to the jury box. Oh man, no. Yeah, the rule, all my judges, was you have to be within touching distance of the podium. You may not go farther, and you must be in front of a microphone. And federal court is very disciplined, and state court's kind of more of a free for all. Like anything goes. It boils, a lot of it boils down to is state court. Federal court has a big caseload. The average judge when I was there had between 300 and 450 cases, and on top of that was criminal. Wow. That was civil, but that also included the habeas, which are mostly handled by magistrates, but they had to do the final. But on top of that is criminal. So it's not like they don't have a big caseload, but state court has a massive, so they don't have as much time to spend on each case.
That's true.
They don't have the law clerks that they have in court, so they don't have people helping with the law, and it's just a different ballgame. But it is.
And then when COVID hit, how did that affect the civil calendar in federal court? I'm assuming that
for a long time we didn't do civil. We just didn't do it because we couldn't. We had enough problems. We started out with some video to try to give the defendants the hearing, but it was so bad that it would cut out and you couldn't hear. And then you have to. I give the marshals credit. They got on and the jails. They got bored pretty quick because actually it was a lot easier for them because
they're like, we're gonna make this work.
From like MDC to Santa Ana, you're like, heck yeah. And so we went through an iteration of differences. We started with the worst system ever. You couldn't hear the court reporters complaining. It was awful. And then we went to Teams, which was amazingly better. But then finally we went to Zoom and we didn't have that many problems. But, we held court. We would all put on, I put on my blazer, my court attire. Mind you, I had sweatpants on because I was sitting. But I looked at the attorneys were all, they were required to wear a tie, just like you were in court. The U.S. attorneys, some of them would stand. I'm like, you don't have to stand. Why are you standing? I just can't. I have to stand when I'm speaking.
That's so funny. And everybody's at home. Everybody's doing this from.
Sometimes the AUSAs would go in. Some of the attorneys and the defense attorneys would be in their offices, but we were all at home. So I would start and I would get the court reporter, make sure she was there. I would get the judge hooked in, and then the attorneys would jump on. And then I have to get the jail hooked in. So that was always a hard one.
It was always funny on Zoom when some people wouldn't turn their mics off.
No.
And you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that.
Well, that kind of goes back to the federal courtrooms have mics that go straight back to chambers if that's not turned off. It's the same kind of thing. So every time you're in a federal courtroom, except I learned to turn it off because who knows, the person saying something crazy could be me, so I would turn it off. But they don't teach people how to do it. I just had a connection with the IT guy. I'm like, how do you turn that off? So I can turn it on for them, but I also want to turn it off when I'm just me in the courtroom. That's too weird. It's weird.
So wait, so say we're in Judge Selna's courtroom and I'm at counsel's table and nothing's going on.
Everything, it's all going back to chambers if you're sitting next to that microphone. Every courtroom.
You mean like on a speaker?
Yeah.
Like everyone, like his staff, everybody can hear? Oh.
Yes. Unless they turn it off. So they have a switch that they can turn it off. And
why would you turn it off? I'd be like, who's going to say what?
That's why. And then in the foyer where the JA, the judicial assistant, and the judge are, there's also one. But yeah, they pretty much didn't turn it off because, number one, you might hear something hilarious. Like many times we hear people say things about the judge, or we're like, oh, they didn't like the ruling, or oh yeah, and we just all sit back there and laugh. And the judges pretty much don't hear it because they're more in the
they don't? Okay.
They can if they happen to be standing there, and they could if they wanted to, but they.
Okay, I had no idea that goes back.
So, for example, if you were sitting in front of that microphone talking to somebody sitting next to you, everything you say is going directly back to chambers.
And the attorneys can't control that.
No. Unless you hold that button, unless that light is red, then that's the only way. But the dumb thing about those microphones is that you can't just turn it to red. You have to hold the button. It used to be. I don't know if that's still what they have. But yeah, unless you hold that button down, or unless it's red, everything you say is going back.
They don't even have a little warning, like on the table.
No.
It's probably on purpose.
Well, and a lot of it is like during a trial, the law clerks, they want to hear the trial, they want to see the trial, but their workload's just not going to let them. And some of them are capable of sitting in the courtroom and working there, but a lot of them, they need more focus, so they go back to chambers, and so they'll turn on the trial or the motion so they can be working at the same time at their regular computer, not on a laptop. At least that's what they say the purpose is. I don't know. When I first learned that, I'm like, you are kidding me? My mouth? Oh.
That's funny. I had no idea.
Oh, well, now you know. Don't be talking about the judge if you're sitting in front of a microphone. Unless you say good things.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's true, too. That's true, too. Wow. That's insane. I'm like thinking back. Well, have I ever said anything? I don't think I would have done that because I'm always aware of those microphones.
And there's also somebody almost always in the courtroom, so the only time,
especially when we're there.
Yeah, there's almost always people and other attorneys, so you're not going to say anything like that. But when you're whispering to someone next to you, they can hear that.
And what about when attorneys are talking to their clients? If they're not aware...
That's why the judge will always tell you to mute the mic when you're talking to your client. So that anytime the mic's muted, they can't hear it in the back. Like the judge can't hear it because you're talking to your client because it's muted. They also can't hear it in the back. But we've heard many.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I had that thing on here for hot mic moments. But... I'm just like horrified thinking back. Like, have I ever said anything? I don't think so.
You know, it's so seldom. And anytime it happens, it was actually just kind of funny. Like talking about more, they actually talk more about the other attorneys. They don't, especially in civil. It didn't really happen in criminal. In civil, they talk bad about each other. And
yeah, because I call them snivel attorneys.
That's
all
what
they do is.
Yeah, so do the court clerks.
It's such a different type. This is going to sound bad. I may offend people. Sorry, but people who do like criminal PDs, private attorneys, prosecutors, as opposed to civil attorneys, it's just such a different dynamic.
I credit that to the criminal attorney. The criminal bar is small. You can be a civil attorney and not see the other attorney ever again. Whereas in criminal, you guaranteed you're going to see that co-counsel or the other defendant's counsel or the U.S. attorney. You're going to guarantee you're going to see him again if you practice a lot in federal court. So it just brings a camaraderie. And the U.S. attorneys and public defenders are all in the same building. We have get-togethers, lunches, like chili cook-offs with everybody in the building. Santa Ana's lucky because it's a small courthouse, so there's a very family type. We all get along. The PDs and the U.S. attorneys go exercise classes together. It's just that's how it is. They do
going to yoga.
What is it that bike?
Going to yoga.
What's the one with the bike? Anyway.
Spin class?
Yeah, they all go to spin.
I can't.
Whole bunch of them.
Oh, my knees couldn't take that. You'll never find me in spin class. Wow. We're done with our first segment, Lisa.
All right.
But I just want to tell our viewers, make sure you log in and check out our second segment because we have a lot of funny stuff to get to. Thanks.